Are we on?
We're on.
Hey, everybody.
What's up?
Welcome back. Dr. Deb and Dr. Joe back here.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you all back again. We are so excited tonight because this tonight wraps up our 7 pillars to a successful family. I hope that you got the opportunity to catch up and watch all the episodes. And this is the night where we pull all the pieces together. I know I've been told by some people that this is kind of like the wheel of confusion, because how can you balance your life in every single area all the time? Life is insane. Aside from all this past year that we've had, life is crazy and insane. And when you have children running in different directions, and even as a couple, sometimes people like these two that I'm going to introduce to you can be in different countries or continents at any given time. It's hard sometimes to get your values together so you can keep everything in alignment. And these two work really well at helping people to align their lives so they can live in a state of health and wellness. So the people that I want to introduce to you tonight, the people that are going to adorn us with some amazing information and show you how to equilibrate your life. We have Dr. Stu Bernston and Charlene Rayner. This fabulous couple. Say hi, guys.
Hey.
Dr. Stu started and is the CEO of one of the largest chiropractic franchises, can I say, in the world?
In the world.
Yeah, pretty impressive. And I know that he's he's been awarded, by Life University, a gift of philanthropy, if I can say it correctly, an award of philanthropy. So, I know that he's done a lot of things in the profession for the profession to help people to further themselves and to do better in their lives. Char, on the other side there, CEO of a couple of great fitness organizations. She's led a lot of people to success in health. And so we brought these two together because we know that they live through their core values, and they would be the greatest people to talk to us about how to pull all this stuff together. How you doing, guys?
We're really excited to be with you. Thanks for having us.
Feedback? Is that? I think they're ducks.
I think it's ducks.
I think it's ducks behind.
There are ducks.
Dr. Stu is in Seattle. Char's in Puerto Rico. We're here in Georgia. We're all over the place. They have ducks. She's got dogs.
We're good. We're good.
So if you can excuse his ducks, I'll excuse my dogs, and we'll be good to go.
And I'll excuse Joe.
I'm in.
Always making squeaky noises, Joe.
Yes. Yes. Well, one of the things we went through this last 7 pillars was amazing for us. Was everybody somehow unintentionally went through their stories and the part that we asked them to speak about, and the common theme that came across the board constantly was their core values. And I know both of you can speak through this, and you teach this consistently. So this is one reason that I'm so excited about it, because I know how much it changed our life, our relationship, and how important it is. And one of the things that we've been talking through also at each group is this should be spoken to as if spoken to a child, like as if you're teaching a child how to do this, because I think it should be taught to your children. But most people haven't captured this yet or mastered it. It still needs to be spoken through as a child. So, and that's not an insult. It's just a reality to it. That's how it was taught to me, and it worked. So I'm super excited about tonight. I'm so glad you guys are on.
That shouldn't be a problem because we're super childish.
That's why we're friends.
That's right. So, this is one of our favorite things to talk about because we both have a history of working with people and drawing people out and exposing their full potential. And there's so much angst in people trying to figure out how to have a balanced life. And, we've come to the conclusion that balance in your values as a balanced wheel really doesn't work. Like, if you look at the 7 areas arbitrarily that we break our lives into: family, finance, social, mental, physical, spiritual, vocational. Most people visualize that as a wheel, neat value with an equal length spoke on the wheel. And in order for that wheel to spin true, every value on that wheel or every spoke has to be equal to the next. And in actuality, we have values that we're driven toward. And values are really interesting when we look at them, that our values, and I'm going to, based on Joe's request, I'm going to repeat things so we get it. Values are not driven by what we perceive that we already have. Our values are driven by where we feel a lack of something. And so values are like a commodity. And that which we don't, like gold, because gold or diamonds are rare, they have a high value in the world. They're commoditized. There's a commodity around them. So there's a supply and demand equation there where the supply is low, so the demand for that is high. So if we have a high value towards, let's say, finance in our lives, that's because we have a perception that we're lacking finances in our life. So it raises up on our value list. Now, values tend to be very dynamic. And so when we're talking about family and how do you work in a congruent family, it's that we have both complementary values and shared values. Where, for instance, in our relationship, we absolutely have a shared value around physical fitness and health and wellness. We have a shared value in around mental acuity and growing our intellect. We have a shared value around family, where it's interesting, we didn't always have a shared value around family. We didn't always have a shared value around finance, but these things shift as they become fulfilled or we perceive that they're lacking in our lives. Now, when we really boil it down, all of us are completely fulfilled in all of our values. It's the perception of lack that drives it.
Now, Stu, would you say that we're all fulfilled? And I think the misconception, Deb, is earlier when you said we're running in 1,000 different directions trying to fulfill all those values. Yeah. And where the hiccup in the process comes in is thinking that you have to have that highest value. You have to be good at each and every one of them. Yep. And it's knowing where your, no pun intended, value is and where you need to reach out to other places to fill whatever that needs to be fulfilled. You know, you can't focus on being the breadwinner and focus on being the mom all the time and be at the gym all the time and be, you know, whatever spirituality you may have, mental, social, you know, you can't be in all of these places at once.
At 100%.
And it's interesting over time, as Stu said, once upon a time, we didn't have the same values. I had a tremendous amount of guilt as a single mother that my responsibility was to my family. But because I was spending so much time in my family, I was not able to fill my vocation to the extent, in my finances, to the extent that I needed to, right, to earn an income. It wasn't until I figured out how to do my work that I valued, making money at the work that I value, and doing it, surrounding myself with people like the two of you. So here I hit vocation, I hit financial, I hit social, I hit mental, physical, but I'm not doing that all on my own. I'm doing that by fulfilling some of those areas, keeping things that are a priority to me. She's looking for that squeaky ball that Dr. Joe.
Of course.
No squeakies. No squeakies.
So the interesting thing is I was able to fulfill all of that, but not by myself.
Right.
I had to bring other people in, and that's the misconception, to think that you are going to get it all done on your own. That's when you hit exhaustion. It's an impossibility, but it's learning how to fulfill that, all those areas and all those values, by not being a superhero and knowing that it takes a village, and bringing in other people's motivation, energy, whether it be through spirituality, mental, physical, whatever. So it's really important to know that component. And that's, I think, the part where we really, really get caught up the most.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges that we run into is, as humans, that which we value ourselves, when people share that value with us, we condone them and invite them in. We automatically like them because we have a shared value. And those that don't have the same shared value, we may condemn or look down upon them that they don't share our value. We don't see that it's a compliment to us. And so in our communication skills, we teach three forms of communication. There's careful communication, where you when you're communicating with really anybody, but certainly interpersonally, where in careful communication, you take your values and sublimate them or push them down and ignore them and elevate the other person's values,
Right,
as more important than yours. And that tends to build resentment over time.
Yeah.
Then there's careless communication, where you take your values and allow them to override everybody else's values. You put yours ahead of everybody else's, and that tends to build resentment and repulsion on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So careless, you're creating that repulsion. Careful, you're creating the resentment in yourself. And then there's caring communication, where you're able to communicate what's important to you through the person's values that you're speaking with. So for instance, go ahead. Sorry, you had a question.
I was going to say, we've been together since we were in high school. So we had no idea what that meant, and it took us a lot of years to understand how we were actually a great team when we thought years ago we weren't, because we thought differently. But as it turned out, when we put those core values together and figured out exactly how to do just that, that's where we became such a powerful team together.
Right, that you're actually complementary. You have equal amount of shared values and unshared values that are complementary and fulfilling on both sides. So you're individually fulfilled and fulfilled together as a couple. And they're kind of the infinity sign. I don't know if you can see it, right, where the two circles where they overlap,
right,
are where you have shared values. In the area where the two circles are not overlapped, those are your distinct values, and that's complementary. If you had completely shared values and both circles were overlapped, one of you wouldn't be necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I find this so important inside the world of relationships with husband, wife, and kids. And what I've often see is that the one or the other is so into the children, and then they're not into each other. And then the kids get older and leave, and then they're looking at each other like, who are you? And they're stuck, and and it's over. And so I think so often that's careless, right? That'd be careless.
Yep.
I got a cheering crowd in the background.
Yeah.
Yay, no, you got it.
I think I got it right.
They're cheering for the caring communication part.
Yeah, and it is so challenging because innately we go with as a survival technique, what's important to me.
Right.
And it's a learned technique to listen, and all it takes is listening and divulging what your true values are at the time, and what your partner, and that partner could be your spouse, your child, your employer, your employee, what their values are. And you could get everything you want and be able to give everything the other person wants if you care enough to communicate what's important to you through their value system.
I think Stu,
But it's a moving target because our values change.
But Stu points out, and I'm going to share a very quick story with you guys. As Stu pointed out, that it's a listening. It's also the responsibility to communicate. And as we talk about core values, one of the most important things is understanding your own personal core values. Because if you're kind of floundering out there without any direction and you're trying to hit every branch on that value tree, you're confusing. It's confusing to it's confusing to everybody around you. So when I did an exercise, and it was one of my favorite outcomes of 15 years being a coach. Great couple, and I kind of draw a circle with my my clients. And I would start them at 5 o'clock in the morning, because I know people start their day with good intentions. They end their day with good intentions. I wanted to figure out, where does it all go to hell in a handbag? It doesn't go to hell in a handbag all day, but there's that trigger, right? And I noticed all the years, and I worked as a trainer, I worked with mostly couples, because family would end up coming in, the wife would come in, the husband, and it was most of a family dynamic at, the age group demographic that I was coaching. This was one of my favorite couples, two of my favorite couples. It was interesting as she was on the go, value within her kids, could run the kids around all day, was very social, very active within the church. She worked on different missions, traveled to Africa. I mean, this is a woman who could do. Her and her husband would fight like nobody's business at dinner time every night. And now I'm going to condense this story, but I would break it down by the hour and find out when she would start to get cranky, angry. Do you know, it's so simple, Deb and Joe. She hated making dinner. Hated it, but as a mother, she felt responsible to make dinner, and that she would be letting her family down. He would sit, all this big idea, we should have a great room with no walls dividing, and everybody should watch TV and cook dinner and be in the same space at the same time, which is ew for me. He would sit there watching TV, blah, 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 drinking his wine, loving life, talking, and he was like Charlie Brown. The whole time she just wanted to kill him. And I said to her, we broke it down, and it came down to, she was literally working out. She bent down and picked up a kettlebell, and she pushed it up over her head and started sobbing. She said, I hate cooking dinner for my family. And this is a great woman, that's all it was. It was that one little thing. And I said, well, why don't you ask him to join you to cook? Like, start that wheel of communication. Start trying to figure out what he's doing, because he's probably trying to please you, and figure out what you're doing because you're clearly trying to please him from a state of resentment. And that's where Stuart said resentment. The minute they started to communicate how they could get through that dinner hour, I said, listen, if it means ordering in meals for the rest of your life, if it's going to keep the two of you and your family strong, then have at it. And it was interesting because it was that quick of a fix.
Yeah.
That's
that
cool.
quick.
It's massive, and I see that all the time. And this is where I'll see, you see couples get divorced when the kids leave the house, or you see, the breakdown I see in a lot of women, especially because they carry this heavy burden, just like what men would carry to go and maybe, bring home the money, whatever. The women are carrying a burden of making sure that everything is in line the way they're told that they're supposed to do it. And it doesn't have to be like that. You are different as a couple, you're different as a family than anybody else. And this is what you guys are trying to teach everyone, that you have to figure it out for you.
Yeah,
you. The key word being, Deb, is for you first. Figure out you first, and don't put that burden of responsibility on somebody else to guess.
Yeah.
It's okay to figure out you, because you put your seatbelt on first, and I know that statement's overused, but you have to figure out you first so you can then communicate, not shove it down somebody else's throat, but this is me, this is what I want now, but it's how do you meet that part way?
Yeah, we worked through an exercise between what we call perceived values and actual values.
Yeah.
And the example that Char gave was someone who had a perceived value of how things should be based on how she grew up in a family or societal norms that, hey, I'm the breadwinner, I got to go off and hunt and drag home the meat. And then there's the family provider. And sometimes that's just not the case.
Mm-hmm.
And, through a series of questions and revealing what true values are in that moment or in that time period, all of a sudden there's a sense of relief where, and Char alluded to it earlier, where she had family as a very, very high on her value list and shoved down vocation and finances and felt that she was sacrificing those when they could have all been very tightly linked together. And that, say you are vocationally driven and you want to serve your family, just by linking those two together will fulfill that. What does me going out and focusing on finances and building my vocation, serving other people, how does all of that fulfill the family need? And it just evaporates the guilt that we have, regardless of where that comes from, by tightly linking and associating that.
Mm-hmm.
That also works within a
guys, let me simplify that, because it's interesting. We talk about that, but we didn't link it. What I had to do to provide for the kids as a single mom, I had to realign that if I went to work, was successful in my vocation, removed the stress of finances through my stress of my vocation, I was then able to spend healthier time with my children versus being stressed out. So I had to really sit down in my head and say, if I really want to serve my children, I'm going to remove my biggest fear. My biggest fear that affected my family, which I pushed down to the bottom, finances became my lowest value because I was pushing kids and everything else up to the top. When I reached down and grabbed that vocation, married it to my family, and I saw finances, if I make money, I'm going to stop yelling at the kids. And if I want these children to be felt happy, healthy, secure, well, I had it that I should be there. I realized me being there in that state of mind was the antithesis of what I was looking for in a family. And it's amazing when you give yourself that permission. Same thing when you're doing the cleanses. It's easy to say, do this cleanse for 10 days. But for some people are doing the cleanse because they want to remove the stress, the burden of inflammation, the burden of pain, the burden of weight, so that can free them up, maybe, to be better at vocation. Maybe that they can spend time with their children. Maybe they'll feel more secure socially. But that link, if I do this, then that, understanding then what your three highest values are, you can change anything.
And it becomes easy. Yeah,
Yes.
and it becomes easy to do because it's tied to your highest value.
Yeah.
Like, we always laugh and use the example. Physical is so low on our value list, both of us, and we're both in the health field. Like, Char, and you guys have seen her, she gets up 5 days a week and goes live and teaches her fitness class without fail.
Yep.
Right?
Why do you
and
No matter where she is.
it's
but
not.
why would you
It's not
think
because physical is so high. It's because vocation has gone up higher. Family, for me, as chiropractors, if we weren't physically fit, there was no way we could provide care for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when you're linking your unloved actions to what your highest value is, why wouldn't you want to do those things?
Right.
people
It
ask,
becomes a natural.
you're like, how do you, the Fransons are like your machine. Like every time I turn on Facebook, you're like running across with a weight or something in your hand. And I do it, and this is such a great conversation because I do it with zero stress. I could be, no matter even how sick I am or tired I am, there isn't a time that I don't get up and do that for 3 reasons. I feel better with work. When I'm better at work, I make more money. And when I'm making more money, I can serve my kids. And it's a nonstop, and my dogs, and I feel better walking my dogs. But then it kind of all touches everything, but the 3 highest values, vocation, family, and finances, if I didn't reach down and grab that physical aspect, it would affect the top 3. And we know that across the board.
And I dare all of you to think not only of this moment, but think about the future. Think about, because you did what you did, Char, it changed the way you lived your life and the people you surrounded yourself with. And maybe you two never would have even met if you didn't pull that value up, or maybe, Stu, there were some things in your life that you shifted your values so you could live your highest values. And so because of that, you two are a fantastic life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love it. And look at what you're doing by doing this, the 7 pillars. I think you had the series. And I applaud the people who continue to show up.
Yeah.
This is doing the work. You don't just wake up one day and say, I got this. It's continuously, right? I get up every morning and do the work. And I learn a little bit more, and I grow a little bit more, and things change a little bit more. And to have successful outcomes or even successful relationships, it's that those itty bitty, you don't have to jump off a cliff.
Oh.
It's these everyday itty bitty little moves that you take to continue to inch yourself in whatever direction you want to go in, right? Mm-hmm. I did my top 3, but somebody else's top 3 could be spiritual, it could be mental, it could be physical, right? So they work, they have physical, spiritual and mental at the top, but they get up and go to work every single day, no matter what, to make money so they can spend time giving back to the community, giving back time to their health. So everything comes in a fair exchange. You can't just have this without contributing. That's why relationships need the work.
So the mouths.
And the best thing is, you can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
Like, your values are your values, and there's nothing wrong with them. You just can't get it wrong. They're going to change over time. They're going to come and go based on your perceived, lack or your perceived abundance. They're just going to change. And wherever you are, just respect yourself enough to be where you're at. And then those unloved actions, link them to your highest value at any time. And you'll,
the mouse came on.
Sorry, Dr. Joe.
The mouse came on, and they were, we did the core values. They did it together as a family. And I witnessed that. It was awesome. And I saw other families do it together. And I found that so powerful because Mark had his, Lynn, and they spoke on this. Lynn had hers, and then they had their daughter's perspectives on the values. And so I would love to spend a few minutes on this as we close up on this, is if you have children and you're doing it as an individual, which I love what Char's saying, go to self. But how do we do it as a family unit? And how do we bring our kids up in this mindset so that these kids are being raised with a true red thread of life going through it, so that when things come across their plate, whether it be breakups, whether it be jobs, whether it be drugs, whether it be whatever it is, that if they own these core values and they understand who they are, again, it's a moving target over time, but there's an essential component to understanding at least where to start. I think this literally, and I mean this with all, this is why I wanted to do this last. This is the essence of what's wrong with this country. It's the essence of what's wrong with children today, is because they're looking for values in someone else when they're not finding the value in themselves or in the family dynamic. And if we could spend a few minutes on this, I think there's no better way to end this entire thing except on that.
I'll take the lead, and then Char could bring it home. I think that first it starts with respect for where you're at, right? And if we've taught our, the 5 kids between us anything, it's to respect exactly where you're at and own it. Like, one of our kids, and totally natural for teenagers, social. I shouldn't say one of our kids, almost all of them have gone through where social is highest on their value list, right? We have one of our kids finishing up his master's degree, and guess what? Social, from all through high school, first 2 years of college, all of a sudden, it shifted to vocation. Like that. And he turned himself around with his mental and vocational became top priority, and social dropped all the way down to the bottom of the list. The values just changed. And I think if we could just teach our children that fulfillment comes from fulfilling the voids that we have, the perceived voids that we have, while also looking for where we are already fulfilled. That it's already fulfilled, and we have to ask and look and ask the question, where is it fulfilled that we don't see it fulfilled already? Right? So where am I already mentally a genius? What am I a genius at? I might not be a genius in algebra, but maybe I am a genius in movie making, in filmmaking. And search for where they are geniuses, and it's always going to be in their highest value.
Yep.
And this is a great conversation for families to have together, because sometimes someone else in the family will see those things in you that you don't even see.
Yeah, for sure.
It's having the conversation. And it's, when you ask how do families do this, and you talk about the mouse, it comes down to, there isn't a hierarchy. When you're talking about family and you're talking about relationships, it's removing the hierarchy. And everybody's important, because wherever they are at that moment is important to them. And to look over at anybody, and that's in friendships, that's in healthy work relationships, that's in teams, sports. I mean, if you can't look around, and I've taught this to my children early on before I even really understood values, you have to have the ability to look outside of yourself and look around. And as a family unit, we do. Everybody, we have 5 kids, and everybody's values are very different, but it's okay to have that conversation. Right now, vocation's very important to Stuart. I have what's important to me. Social's pretty important to Nick. And spiritual actually is important to Serena. Rosie is 16 years old, right? And she could be crushed and lost by the rest of us, because we're all doers going and graduating. Kids are graduating college, but she rises to the top in her social, and that happens, and we happen as a family unit because each individual is respected where they are and the communication exists.
And as parents, really,
anywhere.
As parents, really respecting where they're at and looking for where it serves our values. Like, Char mentioned Rosie. You can put Rosie in a group of people, and she is socially skilled, and primarily because it's highest on her value list. And so why not complement that and bring that out versus condemning it because perhaps maybe their value doesn't match with ours, right? And be really caring and acknowledging where they're at, and then seeing how their highest value serves the family dynamic and serves each individual as a complement.
It's hard to manage this in a 30-minute window because it's interesting. Big picture, it takes us 3 to 4 days in a course, and I guess I'm always very conscious when I have these conversations in front of anybody because I don't want to immobilize anybody. And I guess to anybody listening and to anybody that's going to watch this later, I can't express to everybody how many times I have fallen on my face and I'll do it again. Just because we're having this conversation to help you because we see the value in it does not mean we're getting this all right. It doesn't mean our kids are yelling at us. It doesn't mean that I, sometimes maybe took my mom to St. John's this past 3 days and, we drank alcohol at 11 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? And now I feel like hell. But I mean, and now I'm gonna have to pick myself up and continue to go. I make that joke because it's human. And I don't want anybody to think, wow, but look at what they're doing. I don't get it. It's too confusing. I don't know how to communicate with my spouse. I'll never be able to do that with my kids. You can. And it's very doable by giving yourself permission. And I think the biggest thing all of us do in this group is we individually, and then with our community around us, we give ourselves permission to make that change. We give ourselves permission to grow in a direction. Just because you think somebody's social media squashes us. Well, that girl knows more than I do. That guy's better at that than I am. Well, he's so good at that job, I shouldn't even try because I'll never get there. If you don't continue to tap your toe into the water, you'll never know. You'll never even know if you can swim. And you have to just continue to get yourself out there. So I guess that's my rah-rah, that this isn't something that's always right. It's not something that's perfect. It's perfectly imperfect, I should say. But
and it's a practice.
Doing the work takes stress from here down to here.
Yeah. I agree. Well, guys, it has been awesome, man. I don't want to keep you so much time. We can go on for 3 days on this, like you said.
We could.
And I know in the future we've talked about doing some stuff together and bringing this to the forefront because I think it's that important. And as that evolves, we'll be more out there talking about it because it's something heavy on my heart. I know it's something heavy on your guys' hearts. That this is stuff I think that when people get it, families get it, children get it, it literally changes their outcome. It changes the course and direction of what happens in their lives. And for me, that means the world because I've been so blessed to be raised by great people. Her too. It just I'm always so grateful for that and having such great opportunities in my life. And like you, Char, I have fallen a million times in my face and I've failed and failed and failed. But I've always strived to continue to find the answers and strive to have a better relationship. And I've always strived to always find what's next. And because of that, we have started to discover some answers. And, and I don't have all the answers. I think I'm Indiana Jones still looking for the temple, but I'm getting there. I got a map now.
And you know what? That's exactly, I'm glad you said that. That really is what we're talking about here. Creating your own map.
Your own personal map.
Right.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So guys, I do want to challenge you to open yourselves up to discovering yourself, discovering your spouse, your significant other, your family members, figure out on your own, and then come together and discuss it. Discuss what your needs are. Discuss the things that make you crazy. Discuss the things you love about yourself and about one another, and really discover what it is that will make you successful. Only you can figure this out. So we are so happy to be able to bring all these fabulous guests on for you, to lead you and guide you to a place and a space where you could really live that big, hairy, bodacious life that I know you want to live. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for speaking with us. And
love you guys. Thank you.
Guys, this is the end of our series. We're going to be off for a couple of weeks, and we'll be back with our next series. So we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.